been elected power, which instead of seeking the destruction of Israel with the support of Iran, would seek the freedom and prosperity of its people through democratic rule, I would be the first to say that Israel is wrong and should be stopped and treated like an aggressor against the peace-seeking neighbor. But although I suffer like every human being witnessing what is happening in Gaza, I am unable to give my benefit of doubt to Hamas, which is the daily torturer of its people since so many years in power, and in which fight I frankly don't find anything more noble than in the fight of ISIS or of Nazis against the humanity. Unfortunately, no one has yet invented a method of overpowering violence in self-defense without force. And again, we are of course very aware that what is happening in the territories where the people of Israel and the people of Palestine live is something that must end as soon as possible. Albania has voted more than once in the United Nations for immediate ceasefire, but in the meantime, we have never doubted that the ceasefire that would not include the release of all hostages is anything but a boost for Hamas. We have also stood since long time, and we firmly stand for the two-state solution as the only path forward towards a long-standing peace. But for us, this means Hamas out of the picture and reliable political representation backed by all Arab states on the Palestinian side. On the other hand, I'm quite aware that all what we can say is still much easier said than done, because by no doubt, to fight and win against terror in the front line is much more difficult and complicated than to lecture the fighters from far away while the innocent hostages in the hands of butchers are not your own people, but the people of a country which was taught by history in the hardest way that when the life of a single person is taken away by the enemy just because of his, her nationality, the life of the whole nation is in peril. In this common struggle against terror, against anti-Semitism, radicalism, and all the evils of the world we live on, Albania stands firmly by the side of all of them that are not ready to forget the grave lessons of history and either to relive a past that cost it to the humanity the most horrendous pains. Our grandfathers taught us the value of standing with the Jews by putting their lives in line to protect them from the butchers of World War II. And they also taught the world that there was only honor in being Muslims and sheltering the Jews in their homes, in being Christians and doing the very same, in being just humans when other humans in danger need your help, and whatever it takes. In the same spirit, we gave shelter to several thousand of Iranian refugees whose life was in daily danger in the Camp Liberty in Iraq, where they were raided and killed by Tehran assassins. Bigger and stronger European countries didn't want to help them. And we paid a dear price for being their hosts, because the Tehran totalitarian regime engaged in a large-scale cyber attack on Albania, which aimed to wipe out all our digital infrastructure of public services. But we didn't waver and will not waver in our commitment to shelter those people in our country for as long as it takes. And our hospitality was and is not at all related to any political stance against Iran, but only to a humanitarian belief engraved in our spirit as nations. We were forced to respond to the Iranian regime's ruthless attack by severing our diplomatic relations and kicking their embassy personnel out of the country. But I repeat, the Iranians in Albania are in our BESA, as the Jews were during World War II. And Tehran has to put its mind in rest, because by no chance will not deliver any of them to the hands of the regime, but either encourage our guests to engage in any type of political action using Albania like a platform. Lately, we're to open the doors to another group of people, several thousands of Afghans whose life was in immediate danger right after the fall of Kabul. It was truly an embarrassing moment to see how the biggest and the richest among the NATO European members shied away from the most naturally human obligation to rescue them after we left. They believed in the dream we sold them, with plenty of beautiful words: freedom, democracy, women's rights, free media, and so on. And they exposed themselves wholeheartedly by working with us for a democratic Afghanistan as free citizens, and also working for us as drivers, cleaners, translators, technicians. But suddenly we changed our mind and let their enemies take over, and our beautiful promises meant nothing anymore in the dark, terrifying loneliness of our friends. Well, it is not for Albania to say if we had to stay or leave. We are too small for the big decisions of our alliance. But our spirit is too big to not see at this Afghans' despair, our own despair, when we were under the rule of our red Talibans. So in cooperation with several humanitarian organizations in the United States and with the help of the State Department, we welcomed them, sheltered them, and gave them the chance to start a new life instead of being butchered or forgotten till death in the hellish prisons of the Taliban. And we are very proud to see that they are breathing freely here in the US, in Canada, and in Albania too. My friends, Albania stands today in the world stage with pride, after having passed from a dark past of a very ruthless dictatorship to a long journey of democratic transition, during which we suffered a lot, the prejudices of the outside world and the stigma of poor criminals. Our country's transformation from a thoroughly harsh but much needed justice reform and the blossoming of tourism to our level of security and our roles in the Security Council, at the OSCE chairmanship, and the UN Human Rights Council speaks for itself. We have found our voice in the region, a voice that great powers listen and trust. But my concern is to ensure that this new position for Albania becomes irreversible. We want stronger friendships with all our natural friends. Our strategic allies are the United States and the European Union, which is the bless of our region that otherwise could forget about democratic state building and prosperity. We have strategic partnerships with Italy, Turkey, and Greece. These are our neighbors. You can imagine, it's not easy, but they are our friends. We want stronger and stronger ties with Israel. We want stronger partnerships with the Arab world, and have strengthened a lot our partnerships with the United Arab Emirates, which is a very inspiring place with a visionary, peace-seeking, progressive leader that comes one in a lifetime. And as well with Saudi Arabia, whose reform drive and seek for progress under another visionary leader have brought us much closer than before. We do not want conflicts or nationalist grunts in the region. We aim to promote not just by words, but by our example only peace, regional cooperation, and always, always, always dialogue instead of muscle shows. A lesson my grandmother taught me rings always true to me when I think about foreign policy. Happy neighbor, happy home. I believe that if we remember that God is on our side and also on the other side, we stand a chance of realizing that under heaven's eye, we are all on the same side, the side of humanity. Writing that human greatness does not lie in wealth or power, but in character and goodness, and that all of us are born with a basic goodness, did not save Anna Frank. But as Simon Wiesenthal underlines, for evil to flourish, it only requires good men to do nothing. Rosh Hashanah, the Jewish New Year, a time for reflection, renewal, and new beginnings, it's approaching fast. It is a reminder that even in the face of hardship and turmoil, there is always an opportunity to start anew. Rosh Hashanah teaches us that the past does not define our future. Instead, it urges us to embrace the promise of what lies ahead with hope and determination. Just as the shofar's call awakens the spirit within us, let this moment awaken our resolve to build a world where peace, tolerance, and understanding are not mere aspiration, but realities we actively create. And part of it is standing always firm against anti-Semitism, Islamophobia, and all forms that evil uses to confuse the world. Once more, thank you. And by the way, thank you for being the highlight of this otherwise grim trip to the UN General Assembly.